In this chapter, we're going to introduce the ability to make decisions in our programs, such as in a payroll program where you have to decide whether you're going to pay an employee overtime based on whether or not they've worked over 40 hours a week. Or in almost any program where a password is collected, does the person's password that they entered match what you have on file or stored for them as their password? Those are what we mean by decisions. And we make decisions using something called the if statement. But before we can begin learning about the if statement, we have to learn about conditional expressions, or what are called relational expressions. For example, if we have the variable hours worked, let's go ahead and set it to a value. We can write a relational expression to check to see if hours worked is greater than or equal to 40. This expression, hours worked greater than or equal to 40, will return either a true or false value. That's what the relational operators do. They return true or false. In this case, it's going to be true because we do have greater than or equal to. In a real payroll program, you would probably only pay overtime if the hours worked were greater than 40. So here's another example. Hours worked greater than 40. So let's take a look at the different relational operators. Let's start with a new example. We're just going to create two variables, number 1 and number 2. Assign them values. We're going to display the results of these relational expressions in a console write line statement. So for example, the first of these is number 1 greater than number 2. That's our first relational operator, the greater than sign. We actually aren't going to display these in this lesson. I'm just going to demonstrate how they work. The next is the less than sign for less than number 1, less than number 2. Then we have number 1 equal number 2. Notice that the equality operator is the double equal sign. That's because we've already taken up the single equal sign for assignment. So we have to use double equal to represent equality. So here we're saying number 1 equal number 2. And of course that's false because 12 is not equal to 133. Next we have greater than or equal to, which we saw earlier. Then we have less than or equal to. And then the last relational operator is not equal to. And that's exclamation equal sign. The exclamation mark is the not operator. But in this particular case, we're saying number 1 not equal to number 2. Now if we run this, we'll get a series of true false values. And we can compare these here. Number 1 greater than number 2 is false because 12 is not greater than 133. That means number 1 less than number 2 is going to be true. Number 1 equal to number 2 is false because, as we said before, 12 is not equal to 133. Number 1 greater than or equal to number 2 is false because number 1 is less than number 2. 12 is less than 133. Number 1 less than or equal to number 2 is true because number 1 is less than. And then finally, number 1 not equal to number 2 is true because 12 is indeed not equal to 133. So these are the relational operators: greater than, less than, equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and not equal to. And we use those in what are called conditional or relational expressions to determine how two expressions compare. We can also combine relational expressions using what are called the logical operators, and we're going to look at those in the next lesson.